Hey, Jeremy. Hi, good afternoon, everyone. It's Dina with JCC Maccabi. Thank you guys so much for taking some time out of the day-to-day to sit and review the back end of the system. I started a conversation with Jeremy the other day and sort of prefaced to him that our approach to training this year is going to be sort of small, pragmatic pieces done in about 1 hour trainings, 45-minute trainings for the next month. So I want to sort of set the precedent after this webinar on this Zoom that the expectation, the hope is that we'll be having one every week or so. That'll take about a half an hour to an hour just to catch you guys up in sort of what you should be thinking about and using in the system at this point in time. So I just want to make sure everybody's here, everybody's ready to go. Can you guys hear me? I'm not hearing anybody else. So I just want to make sure.
Hi,
this is Lily. I'm here.
Michelle.
Talia, I can hear you.
Great, thank you. And I also want to sort of start this off with the precedent of who you're going to allow access to the system at this level. So we are going to be able to provide you with 3 to 4 what we call high-end, top-level access accounts to the system. That's going to give you the capacity to really manage and manipulate every single aspect of the system. Traditionally, this is usually either the Games and Arts Fest director and assistant director, paired with the admin, or somebody else who's going to be doing a lot of the hands-on work in the system. To that, we will also then allow you and provide you guys with as many sub-accounts as you'd like. Those are going to have a great deal of access to the system. They'll be able to pull reports, make edits to registrations, and manipulate things in the system, but there are certain pieces that they're not going to be allowed to do. So with that, as we're going through this, I challenge you guys to sort of keep in the back of your mind, who are those 3 or 4 people that you're going to want to give this high-level access to? Because once we complete the training, I'll send you guys a bunch of information. You guys will write back with sort of who those individuals are, and we'll get you set up with access into the system so you can start getting comfortable and playing around as well. So username and password, as I said, we're going to provide you with 3 full-time accounts. We're looking into the possibility this year of providing 4. We want to make sure that you guys have all hands into the system as you need. So as I said, please keep in the back of your mind throughout this call who you think those people may be. Again, keep in mind you do want them to be tech savvy. You want people who are going to be comfortable utilizing basically what's a CRM management system of information. As I mentioned, you'll also have an unlimited number of part-time accounts. One of the things to keep in mind here is that as we move forward in the process for your part-time accounts, you're going to want to be able to provide certain members of certain committees certain access accounts. So for example, people who are on your host family committee, we wouldn't want to give them full access to the system to see everybody. We'll be able to set up their view in the system to specifically be that of only seeing the host families. So I want you to keep in mind when you're also thinking about your sub accounts here and your sort of part-time accounts, we can really tailor the views for all of those users in any capacity that we want to make sure that they're only being allowed access to the people in the system that they should be touching and managing. So again, once you give me those names, we'll go ahead and invite them to join the system. You'll get an email from JCC Maccabi registration at jcca.org. In that email will be sort of the steps and the prompts to set up your password and get you all set up in our system. Something that's important to remember, we say it to all of our visiting delegation heads, and we encourage you to share it during your trainings with your community as well, is that JCC Association nor RegPac does not have records of your passwords. So any passwords that a user is putting in when they're establishing their accounts are really just sort of stored in a coded cloud. We can't access them. So for you and for any of your community users, if you forget your password at any point in time, you can go ahead and you'll see when you're logging into your account in that red box there I've highlighted, there's the opportunity to click Forgot Password. and that will generate an email that goes to your email address that allows you to sort of reset your password following a couple of quick prompts. Users and browsers from the back end of the system. Something that's important to keep in mind with the back end versus the front end of the system. The front end of the system will work with Internet Explorer 9 and above. The back end simply will not. So you really do want to make sure you're in Chrome and Firefox whenever you're accessing the back end of the system. As the front end is, the back end is mobile friendly. But again, please remember, if you're using an iPad, we want to stay away from Safari if at all possible. If Safari is on and the user refuses to download anything else, or that's all you guys have access to, please just make sure that your cookies are enabled in Safari. Otherwise, you're really just not going to have access to the system. You'll also note that when logging into the back end of the system, it's a different website. So you'll see it's regpacks.com, and you'll see to the right in your status, in your sort of menu bar, there's the opportunity to click Client Login. I also want to specify that if you have your browser shrunk or half size, you're not going to see that full menu bar. What you'll see is 3 dashes. If you click on that, you'll see the drop down where login will appear. I also want to preface this, guys. I'm going to be sending you a recording of this webinar in addition to the actual PowerPoint, so you guys can utilize this as a reference tool and a training tool moving forward. That will also be the case for all of the webinars and the trainings that we have moving forward. So your home screen, once you've gone through, we've set you up with your access to your system, to your account, you've logged in, you set up your password. This is going to be your home screen that you see when you log in. We call it our user management home screen. You'll see that with full access users, they're going to have a display of everybody who's registered under your host community. And as we get closer, that's going to include all visiting delegates as well. So that full access account is going to be able to see every single individual who has come in and registered to participate in your Makabe this summer, in your Arts Fest this summer.
Does that include spectators as well, Dina?
100%. You'll be able to see the full gamut of everybody that'll be coming to your community this summer.
Thank you.
And again, to that, Larry, we can tailor that. So for the part-time accounts, and even with your full-time accounts, if, for example, you want to limit that and you don't want people to see that information, we certainly can. There is an inevitable sort of vast amount of tailoring that we can do. We can say what questions somebody sees, what users, what type of users, how many forms, which forms, even within a form, which question. So again, as we move forward in the process and we get a sense of who on your communities and who on your chairs are really the tech savvy, who may not be the tech savvy, who we want to have more access to touch information, see information, and who we may feel may not be the people to do that, again, we'll set up all the appropriate accounts for you guys that make sense. Once you've logged in, again, you've seen that main screen, you're going to notice that there's 3 tabs to the system. One is going to be an account tab, one is going to be a main tab, and one is going to be a subunit tab. As you guys are working with your host community registrants, you're mostly going to be utilizing that account tab. What that account tab is going to show you is going to be the account name and then all of the registrations associated with that account. So for example, Larry, you and Francie are going to host this summer. You're going to host a bunch of kids. You guys go in and you register yourselves. Francie, you set up an account. Larry, then you're going to register. So under that account name, we're going to see both of your registrations. So it allows you to view members of a household together and connected in the system. This is specifically why we ask people to register all of their family members under one account. It allows us to see them and manipulate them easy in the system. Alternatively, you'll see there's a main tab. We really don't use this tab, to be completely honest with you. All it's going to show you is going to be the account name. You're not going to have access to any of the registrations or the accounts sort of that are associated with that general account name. The third tab, which is where we spend a good majority of our time, is going to be basically every single individual registered in the system. As we'll sort of see in a little bit, there are ways to filter and there are ways to sort your view so you can tell the system which users you want to see, but this will give you access to just literally every single registration that's come into the system without that account name. Any questions about the tabs? Great. You'll see that every user also has a registration status bar, and it's sort of inclusive and cumbersome of what you're going to see on that main page when you log in. And I want to sort of walk you through the different pieces that are associated with that registration bar. First, you're going to see a star, and that allows you to identify and sort registrations. Please note that this is just for you, which means if you go in there and you start using stars and check marks to mark things, you're going to be the only person who sees that when you log into your account. So for example, Jeremy, you go in and you mark a whole bunch of people with green check marks. Then Francie, you log in, you're not going to see Jeremy's marking. So it's important to know that if you choose to use this, it's just for your view. But it's helpful when you're looking at Who do we need to follow up with to provide us information as far as our local delegation is concerned? Who do we need to follow up with because they haven't selected their volunteer shifts yet? It'll give you and the members of your team an identifying marker, again, to sort of do your system and what you're managing when you're in the system. The second piece is going to be a little bit of a chat bubble, and this is something that we really ask the visiting delegation heads not to touch. This is something that's operated by you guys as the hosting community and myself and our team here at JCC Association. The purpose of that chat bubble is direct communication between ourselves and the delegation heads as it relates to their confirmation pages. So as we get later in the process and sort of Talia and Brett and we sort of figure out who's checking systems and who's looking at what in the system as far as visiting delegations are concerned, we'll talk through that process in a little more detail. But basically, we're not going to be utilizing that chat box for anything other than confirming when a visiting delegation head has gone in, they've put their stamp of approval and their confirmation on their athletes and on their adults. We're going in and checking as a host community and JCC Association, and we're using that chat box to put our final stamp of approval on all of our participants. And then you'll see the registrar's name, you'll see the user's first name and last name, you'll see the date they began their registration. Please note that it has nothing to do, there's no correlation to when they've completed it, it's simply the date that they began their registration. You'll also see that there's a completeness status bar. It will start with sort of a yellow-orange and work its way to green once it's been completed. And you'll also see, Larry, to your point earlier, for spectators, if there's money owed and there's balances, you'll see that with that incremental number next to that sort of color changing bar. It's imperative to know that your local community is not being charged for spectator fees. So you should not see any sort of money increment next to any of your local spectators. It'll only be for the visiting spectators. And again, this allows our visiting delegation heads to track if their spectators have not paid yet and do the necessary follow-up. As just a point of reference, know that from JCC Association, we do manage this as well. And I do send regular reminders to those who have not paid their balance to ensure that all fees are collected and then appropriately distributed between yourselves and JCC Association. You'll also see on the final sort of tab there is set status as. So we use this to activate and deactivate users. So basically the way that RegPack works is we never actually delete somebody from the system. It's just the method of their system and sort of their rhyme and reason on how they operate their management system. What that means for us, however, is let's say we have a host family who starts the process with us now in January and then decides, you know, in a month from now, their plans change, they don't think they're going to be around this summer, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to their set status and we're going to deactivate their account. Well, then they come back to you 3 months from now and say, you know what, great guys, actually our plans changed. We're back in town, we're going to be in Detroit summer, we would love to host kids. We can go into the system and reactivate their account. They do not have to start from the very beginning and re-enter all their information. We'll just be able to sort of bring it back up and reactivate it to the system so they can complete any missing pieces at that time. As I indicated, that sort of sliding color bar is going to be a completion status bar, and that's going to show you when a registrant has completed, how much they've completed. You'll also note that next to it is sort of a number with a slash and another number. That shows you how many forms have been completed out of how many total forms are associated with that user. You'll see if you click on that status completion bar, a drop-down will appear with all of the forms associated with that user. You'll see there are forms to the left-hand side and forms to the right-hand side. The forms to the right-hand side are those admin forms, and that's that athlete confirmation page and that medical confirmation page. There's also a confirmation page for all of your local community members, as well as delegations, coaches, chaperones, and every level of participation. You guys are going to be responsible for monitoring your volunteers and your host families, and we'll talk you through that process as those people are identified and we come out for our trainings in the future. But it's important to know here that you'll be able to tell by clicking on the status bar what forms have been completed and what forms have not been completed. The indicating marker there is going to be that red circle versus that green circle. You'll see the green circle indicates that all questions on that form have been completed, and you'll see that a red circle indicates that all the questions on that form have not been completed. At any point in time, as a user is going through their registration, or as you would like to edit a registration, you can click on that drop-down bar, and you can simply click on the form you'd like to edit. The screen will then refresh, and it will bring you to that user's form. As I indicated earlier, when you log into your registration, to your back end of the system, and you see that main user page, you have the opportunity, based on what tab you're in, to sort the view that you're seeing. So for example, as I indicated, you're probably going to spend a lot of time in the subunit tab, which is where you're looking at individual registrations. You can see that when you click on sort by, a drop-down appears with a variety of different sort of applications and operations. And you can see from everything from when an application was started, if a balance has been paid, if comments, if stars, if you've done anything in your system, you'll be able to sort by that. Completion level, again, completion level comes in handy as we're trying to look at the system and sort of do those little extra nudges to our users who still need to finish the missing pieces of their registrations. Please also note you'll see a green arrow and a blue arrow. If you click on the title of what you're looking to sort by more than once, it'll switch from ascending to descending. In addition, you have filters. Filters allow us to tell the system specifically what we're looking for. So we're going to go through a little bit about filtering through through forms and filtering through fields. I just want to pause for a second and make sure we don't have any questions before we dive into the next part. Great. So filters, you'll see when you log into the system that we've built some pre-built filters for you. And these are the ones that we find over the history of using this RegPack system are most utilized by our host communities and our visiting delegation heads. Please note that as we go through, you'll also know that we can create our own filters at any point in time. So while there are certainly pre-built for your use, you can build whatever you'd like as we go through the system. In order to build your own, you're going to go ahead and you're going to click Advanced Mode. And you'll see that that's located on the right-hand side of that filter dropdown. Then you'll see the opportunity of the system is going to present to you sort of what is the hierarchy that you'd like to sort from. What type of question, what type of information would you like to sort of filter the system for? And we're going to be using forms and fields while we're in the system. And forms correlate to any completion level of a form, and fields relate to the answer of a specific question in any level of participation for any user. So for example, in looking under forms, let's say we want to see all of our users who have gone in and completed their host family question forms. We would go ahead, we'd go to forms, we'd scroll down. You'll also note in the top sort of middle section is a search for field or form. These are type searches. So if you type the form that you're looking for or the question you're looking for, it'll auto sort your results and only show those opportunities. So once you've indicated what you're looking for, you'll see that it appears on the right-hand side under your filter criteria. You always want to make sure that the correct information is displayed under your filter criteria because that's what's going to be applied to the system. Unfortunately, RegPack time to time likes to save a filter you may have run before and carries it over into a new filter. So please just double check those filter criteria before you run a filter to make sure the pieces that you are actually intending to look for are there. One of the other things I want to point out is that we can filter for layers of forms and layers of fields, which means we can ask for multiple things to be sort of correct in order for a user to be shown. You'll see in the example below, we're looking for somebody who has completed their host family questions and completed their volunteer questions. The last thing that's important to keep in mind when we're looking at our filtering tool here is all options are required versus any option is sufficient. And of course, that's only applicable when you're filtering for more than one level. But again, it's important to keep this in mind and be aware of this before we hit filter. Because of course, if we say all options are required, the system is only going to show us users who have met all the criteria we have designed. If we select that any option is sufficient, any user who meets any level of criteria that we've entered will be presented to us. Filter by field, the technique of adding the filter is going to be exactly the same. However, as you can see for fields, we have the ability to look for specific questions and the answers to specific questions. So for example, if you wanted to reach out to your families who've indicated they could host early, you would be able to go ahead, filter for that, for those users who indicated yes, they'd be able to host early, and then you'd go ahead and hit apply filter, and the system would refresh to only show you those users. Again, as indicated with the forms, you can add levels to your filter criteria in the fields. Again, please make sure you're looking at all options are required versus any option is sufficient. Any questions about filtering by fields or by forms?
Just quickly, when you apply the filter, how is the report generated? Is it are we going to get to that? Like, is it an Excel spreadsheet or anything like that?
We certainly will. It's going to be an Excel spreadsheet that allows you to manipulate the data.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. Thank you for asking questions. I appreciate it.
Sure.
So as far as applying the filter is concerned, once we set the criteria, once we told the system these are the users we want you to find for us, we're simply going to go ahead and hit apply filter. You'll see then on the top of your user management that what sort of has been applied in that filter. So again, you'll see the breakdown of exactly what you've asked the system to apply. You can save a filter at any point in time. If you find it something that you're using regularly, we certainly encourage you to save them. You'll note that next to sort of the display of what filter levels you've applied is Save Filter. you'll simply go ahead, click on Save Filter, and you'll see that little box appears that lets you sort of name the category you want it to be in, and you'll name that specific filter name. When you get into the system, once we set you up with your accounts, please take a look. You'll see that everybody has access to sort of that general drop down of filters and saved filters. So we've created one for levels of participation for everyone. We do kindly ask that if you're building one specifically for your host community, that you label them as such. Please create your own category, label it host community, and then build as many filters as you'd like. The caveat there is be sort of aware of it, right? You've got the opportunity to build filters that everybody can use, and you've got the opportunity to build filters that only appear for your registration when you log into your system. So again, if you're using a filter over and over again and you find that other members of your team will find it useful, please feel free to save it for everyone. However, it's something unique to your role in JCC Maccabi this summer. Please save it only for yourself, and again, it will show up in your saved filters every time you log into your system. Removing a filter. The system will not do this automatically, so you need to make sure that there's no project filter listed above your management bar. In order to do that, you'll simply click the X bar, or you can click sort of that gray gradiated box with those two arrows pointing left. Either one of those will go ahead and it will remove that filter from your page. So sort of what we were talking about before, Larry, what you sort of asked about, is running and pulling the information from the system. So now that we've told the system the type of users that we want to see, we want to pull certain information as it correlates to those users out of the system. The one thing that's quintessential to remember here, guys, is that you must run a filter before running a report. What that means is that if we're running a host family report and we haven't filtered for host families, that host family report is going to pull on every user that we have access to. So it will pull for athletes, for artists, for visiting, whoever you have access to in the system, it will pull that report for all of those users. And that's why, again, it's quintessential. We first tell the system what users we want to see and then which report we want to apply to those users. So you'll notice in that same bar where you had your filters, you also have a drop-down called reports. When you go to that drop-down of reports, you'll see, similar to the filters, we've built you a variety of sort of reports that we found that host communities visiting delegation heads have used in the past, and you'll find them there. You'll see they're sorted under certain categories. If you click on the View All Reports is when you'll get that full drop-down, which sort of displays, again, all of the reports that you have access to and have them categorized. I want to pause for a second here and make a clarification that this is one of the defining characteristics between that high-end level full access account and a lower level part-end account. That full-time access level account will be able to build reports. They'll be able to tell the system exactly what it to pull. They can then save that report, and all of your sort of sub-users will be able to use that report. However, your sub-users will not be able to generate and create their own distinctive reports. They would have to contact either myself at JCC Association or one of your high-level admins to be able to create that report for them. Please bear in mind, we have created a variety of reports that we think cover everything, inclusive of reports that do pull all information from the system. But again, I did want to clarify that that's really one of the defining differences between those top-end users and those regular account, sort of part-time account users. You will also have the opportunity to set what we call quick views, which is basically any reports that you find that you're using over and over again. And you do that simply by clicking quick view. Once you do so, you can see to the right, it gives you the opportunity to set which reports you're using most frequently. And once you select them as your quick view, they will be the ones that appear on that drop-down menu. Downloading a report. So once we've now filtered, we've told the system the type of users we want to see. We've now selected the report we want to run. The system is going to refresh itself to look almost like an Excel spreadsheet. Once it does so, you're going to go ahead in the top right corner, you're going to see a button that says download as a CSV. You're going to go ahead and click on that, and you'll see an Excel open up on your screen, and now you have all the information in the Excel format to manipulate. One thing that is very important to remember here is when you are saving that file, you need to switch the type and the extension that you're saving that file. It will automatically save as a CSV if you don't change it, and unfortunately, that information will not be usable if you try to reopen it. So again, while you download it, it may look like an Excel, it's formatted to save in a CSV. So make sure when you're saving any of the information, any of the reports you've been working on out of the system, that when you save it as an Excel file. Any questions about filtering, pulling information out of the system or reports before we move into editing users? Great. So one of the main things and one of the main pieces of customer service that you guys are going to see that you'll be doing as far as registration is concerned is going to be a lot of registration edits. Whether it's I need to change a name, or I need to change a birthday, or I selected the wrong delegation, or please help me select my volunteer shifts, that's where a lot of our customer service as far as it relates to the system takes place. So again, I want to walk you through some of the steps of editing a user's registration. One of the things that's important to keep in mind, when we clicked on that status bar and you saw the drop down of all the forms associated with the user, some of those forms had little red dots to the right-hand side of those forms. That does indicate that the form locks once the user has completed it. These are strategic and they're certain forms. It's going to be all of our forms with e-signatures because we don't want a user to be able to go back into the system and adjust that electric signature. It's also going to be that basic information form because we don't want that information to be manipulated as they move forward. And you'll see as we move along in the process, forms such as our housing family questions will lock once the matching process starts. Again, it saves us the process of the user going in and making changes to information that we're using sort of for key essential parts of the process and sort of planning. So it's important to know that because if a user wants to make an adjustment to a form that's been locked, they're not going to be able to make that adjustment on their own. It is something that you guys as the host community, the visiting delegation will have to do for their local community. So we do have to offer some assistance there. So in order to edit a user's registration, you'll see that in the top right of your screen when you log in, you have your account name and you'll have a stack of books with any other projects that you may be working on. And then it has a user search and you can use by the user name or their login email. It's important to clarify here that you can only search by a first name or a last name. You cannot search by a first name and a last name. So please keep that in mind when you're searching for a user in the system. Again, it's an easy search tool. You'll go ahead, you'll type in the user's name who you're looking to edit. Once you've hit that little green sort of search filter, the system will regenerate with all of the people who meet that criteria. Once you find your user, you're going to go ahead, click on their status, drop-down menu, and then you're going to click on the form that you'd like to edit. You'll see that in the top left-hand corner of every user's actual forms is a blue edit button. You'll note once you click that blue edit button, it flips itself to a yellow save button. You want to make sure that you're hitting that edit button when you get to the page. It'll allow everything on that form to be malleable. And then you want to make sure once you've made all your adjustments that you go ahead and you hit that save button so all that information is retained in the system. It's important to also know that we can help others edit their own registrations. Of course, we're here to be helpful and we want to offer that customer service. And as I indicated, there are certain forms that users simply cannot edit on their own. However, there are forms that they can edit on their own, and we want to make sure that we're helping people feel empowered in the system. So we're going to talk about a dashboard a little bit and what that looks like, because that's where users can be able to manage all of their registrations. When you get to the user's dashboard, they'll be able to see all of the individual registrations associated with their account. They'll be able to remit any payments for our visiting delegations who have payments for spectator passes. And they'll be able to manage all of those registrations. In managing all of those registrations, they can delete registrations, they can add new registrations, and they can manipulate any of the data that they've entered into an existing registration, again, aside from those red dot forms that we've marked as uneditable. So we're also going to have the instance every now and then, and we're going to see a lot of this week of, where we need to add new users to an account for a registrant. So for example, Miss Smith comes in and her 75-year-old grandmother, her 80-year-old grandmother, she wants to come, she wants to be a spectator. For the life of her, they can't figure out how to log her in and get her registered. So can you please sit with her for 5 minutes and help her do her spectator registration to come watch her grandson this summer? So what you're going to do is you're going to go ahead, you're going to log into the system, and we're going to look, this is going to be the one time that we're looking under that account tab, where it's just the name. Once we get to the account tab, we're going to search for that user, we're going to find the user, and you're going to see when you go just past the set status as, you can hover over and a green circle with a white arrow will appear. If you click on that green circle, a drop-down will appear that gives you the opportunity to create a new child subunit. Once you do this and you click on that form, you will automatically be brought to a basic information page, which starts you from the beginning, and they can enter all of their user information. Again, this is all happening from the back end in the instance that we need to help a user who is unable to do so themselves. One of the other things we're going to find a lot of is helping users select their volunteer shifts. We find a lot of the times that our shifts are in there now, our shifts are live. People may not know what their plans look like for the summer, so they may not be comfortable signing up yet. So as we get closer to the event, what we're going to do is I'm going to work with you guys to pull reports on who has not selected shifts and what shifts are still available. We're then able to take a peek and sort of see who were good fits for what shifts, and we'll be able to reach out to our volunteers and start helping them get into shifts. So one of that's going to be from the back end, what are you going to do and what are you looking at? So you've got the opportunity to use a filter tool. Please note this is the same filter tool that your users are going to see from the front end. So when they're selecting their own shifts, they have the opportunity to look for schedules, location, dates, and times, and they can filter their schedule view and their volunteers sort of shift opportunities based off of their specific needs. And you'll be able to do the same in the back. So for example, I have got Francie, I've got you on the phone, and we're going to get you in for some shifts. So I say, okay, what day and time works for you? Give me some days and times. Okay, is there a specific location you'd like to be? We'll be able to plug that in. We'll go ahead and we'll hit filter, and the system is going to show us all of the volunteer shifts that are available based on the criteria we've entered. In order to select a shift for a user, again, we've hit that edit button in their on that form for them, and we're scrolling down, and you'll see that there's a blue select button. Once you click that blue select button, that button is going to turn red, a check mark will appear, and you'll see that a number will appear in the front of that slash. That'll indicate how many slots have been taken out of how many slots are available. You'll go ahead, you'll click that save button, and now that user has been placed in that slot. One of the things we'll talk through as well is that, and I started talking with Jeremy about, is these automated emails. We'll be able to set up emails for your users so that once they've been placed in a shift, they're going to get an automatic confirmation email, which shows them the shift that they've been placed in. It also has an opportunity to download that time into their phone calendar. So they'll get a reminder and it'll automatically be brought into their sort of their systems and their calendars. So I know that was a lot of information. I know we went over sort of the basic back end pieces and getting you into the system, getting you comfortable, and getting you sort of running some filters, running some reports, and getting comfortable with the basic steps of this process. So I want to open it up to any questions you guys may have. And again, follow it up with, in a follow-up email that I'll send you guys either today or tomorrow. You're going to get a copy of this webinar, the audio and visual recording. You're going to get the PowerPoint. And you're going to get some follow-up questions and things to think about, inclusive of who you want these high-level accounts to be at this point in time.
So I have a couple of questions, Dina. Excuse me. The first one is, are we done? By the way, can I ask all the questions that may not have to do with this?
Sure.
Okay. So when do we start getting access to this, number one? And number two, is there a demo that we can do so we can kind of not screw anything up, but try and figure out what we're doing?
So unfortunately, there is no demo. What I would encourage you guys to do is register yourselves in the front end and then manipulate your registrations in the back end.
Okay.
And again, I'm happy to help. If anything happens, we're fine. I don't think anybody on your team was with us back in 2014 from Atlanta. We had a young woman who was with us. Unfortunately, we had a little bit of a mishap where one of our users from a host community, and at that point in time, all three of our systems for all of our hosts were connected, went in 2 weeks before the event and deleted every single user accidentally. We have built several foolproof methods to ensure that will never happen again. So, Larry, while certainly get in there, play around with your own registration, you really can't do any harm unless you intentionally try to at this point. You have to enter passwords, to enter all sorts of things in order to do any real harm.
Got it. And then what about when do we start getting access to see what's in there? Because I know that when we did our kickoff meeting, there were a bunch of mistakes that we couldn't work on because the pages were locked, or we took a lot of paper volunteer things. So when are we going to be able to get in there and root around in there?
As soon as you get me those names of those individuals you want to have that high-end access, we'll get you right set up. If you know who those names are after this call, guys, and you want to shoot me those names right away and not wait for the follow-up email, please feel free to do so, and I can get you set up today.
Yeah, we can discuss that with Michelle and Jeremy, I think, and Francie.
Okay.
That's all I have. Anybody else?
Ready to practice, ready to play and practice.
All right, great, guys. Thank you so much. So again, if you want, feel free to shoot me the email with those users after you've had the opportunity to talk amongst yourselves. And again, please in the next 24 hours, expect a full recap email from me with some follow-up questions and some proposed times for our next training, where we're going to dive in a little deeper with those high-level access people on sort of creating some emails, building your own reports, and moving forward from here.
Thanks,
Thank
Dina.
you guys so much again for joining me. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.